Hey y'all, welcome back to day 20. I can't believe we're 20 days into this RV renovation series. That just seems wild to me. And if you've been here from the beginning since the Reno series, I just wanted to thank you for sticking around and bearing with me while I go through all this footage and try to guide you guys on how to do all this. So I just really appreciate you guys sticking around and all your feedback that you give me on my videos. All right, so this video is starting off kind of random. This is like the random thing that I keep forgetting to do. So if you guys remember, I didn't spray the doors with the glass on the front. I hand painted them. So I was just having a razor blade and like scraping off all of the paint, and then I'll hang those eventually. And if you remember correctly, a couple episodes ago, I went ahead and stained this countertop. Now we're going to work on polyurethane. I like to use a high gloss polyurethane. I just really like it for it to shine. But what you use is really just going to depend on how you want it to look. Lots of different ways you can put this on. You can spray this on if you have the right sprayer. I like to use these foam brushes just because they're cheap and I can use a lot of them. So I pretty much use one brush every time I apply this polyurethane on. So I smooth it out. This is kind of like self-leveling, and I do put it on kind of heavy because it does level out pretty nicely. And so I just spread it out on the top, and I try to go from one side and work my way all the way over to the other. That way I don't have a bunch of like jagged weird spots in the middle, and then I'll do the edge last. So this is me just doing all of the other countertops for the bathroom, and then the side tables for the bedroom, and then the little side tables for the couch area. And I think I bought this stuff at Lowe's or Home Depot. You can find polyurethane pretty much at any big box store like that. Walmart probably sells it too. And I'll do a couple coats on this actually. So in this video, I'll end up doing 2 coats. And it is important to do the side pieces last, like the edge pieces last, because when you do the top, the polyurethane will kind of drip down the side. And if you don't smooth it off, then you'll get drips on it. So you don't want that. So after it's nice and dry, I'll go ahead and put a second coat on. This works a whole lot better in the summertime when it's hotter. The dry time is like crazy fast. Like I can do like an entire countertop in like 3 or 4 hours versus when it's cold, it takes a lot longer to do that. All right, we'll go ahead and let that dry. Next, I'm going to move on to the tile backsplash, which I know you guys have been waiting for this. Starting off by just cleaning off any of the dust. This is a rag with water and simple green in it, nothing crazy. And then I'm going to take this trim ring off. This is just a bunch of square head screws. You just take that off. The trim comes right out. Normally I would be worried about the window falling out, but I know that this style camper has an adhesive window like sealant on it. It's kind of like window tape almost. It's adhesive on the other side, so I know the window's not going to fall out, so not too worried about that. And the reason I want the window off is so I can put this tile mat underneath it. This is, I don't know if you say muscle bound tile mat. I really like this stuff. I've used it a lot. I actually use this in my kitchen on drywall just because super easy to apply tile to. You can't really use regular materials that you would use in a house in a camper for lots of reasons, but the main one is the extreme temperatures, the hot and the cold. So this isn't an adhesive. It is basically a giant foam sticker. And I know what you're thinking, Heather, you told me don't put anything that's sticky on. It won't stay. Okay, well, this is going to be the exception to the rule, because once this stuff attaches to anything, it will never come off. Like I'm talking about, you're going to have to take the entire wall off before this stuff ever comes off. It is that sticky, and I think it's because it's foam, like it's a thicker material than just adhesive glue. Anyway, really like this stuff, so I'm kind of laying it out here and just fitting it in all these little pieces. I do have this linked on my Amazon storefront as well if you want to check it out. I bought this from Lowe's. It is cheaper at Lowe's. I think it was $35 a roll at Lowe's, and it's maybe $45 or $50 at Lowe's, but sometimes Lowe's doesn't have it in stock, and sometimes it's worth it to pay the extra $15 to get it and not have to drive 45 minutes to another Lowe's to get it. So, spoiler alert, that's what I ended up doing because I ended up needing another roll for another project that I had. But this stuff goes on really easy. Try not to overlap it because it will create kind of like a raised spot. So that's really the only catch, is make sure that it's close to each other but not overlapping. So right here, I am just laying this tile out to however long I need to make it, and I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to cut it. And I'll get back to that in a second, but first I need to know where my countertop is going to sit. And that's important because I need to know how far down I need to bring this tile, because I don't want to bring it too high and I don't want to bring it too low and waste a bunch of tile. Okay, back to this tile I have laid out. I figured out it was easier to cut these 3 little pieces off right here. So those shapes kind of go into half, and it actually worked out perfect all the way across. So this is how I'm starting it. You can totally start it with a full sheet if you want to. You don't have to start it the way I do. I just find it's really difficult to come back and cut and piece those little tiny pieces in, especially since you're going to have to do it all the way up the wall. So I mean, that's really personal preference. I don't want to have to come back and stick in a bunch of little tiny small pieces. But sometimes it does make sense where your endpoint is to go ahead and do that, because you don't want like a really small piece of tile on the very end. So you have to kind of take that into consideration, how long your tile needs to be, and you need to lay it out to make sure that wherever your tile is going to end, it's not going to have like little itty bitty tiny short pieces that are just going to look weird. All right, so when I cut tile, I put a piece of tape down so I know where my line is, and then I just cut it. Nothing crazy. And this tile mat that I use, the tile has to be completely dry or else it won't work. So in order to save me some time, I get my air compressor and I blow all of the air off of this. If it's the summertime, it heats it up, dries really well. It's already warm outside. If it's the wintertime, super cold, I'll get a heat gun sometimes and kind of get rid of any excess moisture, because it would literally take me forever if I sat and waited until all of these tiles dried and put them on. Okay, so now it is blown off and it's dried. I'm going to lay my first piece down. This one is the most difficult, I think, because it sets the scene for the entire thing. So I know I better make sure that this one's right. It better be straight, and it better be straight to actually my countertop and straight to the wall, the corner of the wall right there. So that's why I kind of moved it around, and that first piece took me a little bit longer than it's going to take the rest of these pieces, because once that first piece is on, the rest of these will pretty much just lay into place fairly easily. And then you're just going to go piece by piece. I don't take all of the paper off of this tile mat. The reason is because it dries fairly quickly, probably within an hour. And when it dries, it doesn't stay sticky. So take that as your warning. Go section by section. Don't peel everything off and then try to do it all at once. Because if something happens and you have to walk away and come back to it, then you're going to be in big trouble, because your tile is going to be dry and the tile isn't going to stick to it. So once you start this project, I suggest finishing it. I wouldn't suggest doing it in pieces. Now, I know what you're thinking in your head. Heather, why are you not using tile spacers? This must be the worst tile job I have ever seen in my life. And the answer to that is simply because I have a very calculated brain, and I can see exactly where each sheet needs to go and how the spacing is supposed to work in my brain. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because if I spent time to put tile spacers on these, one, I didn't have the right spacing for this, so the sheets would have been spaced apart. Could I have bought it? Yes, I could have bought it, but I just didn't. And two, I don't know. I got nothing, but it looks great. It's fantastic. And I think it also depends on the style of tile used too, because these hexagonal shaped tiles are so much easier to install than, let's say, like a subway tile or a herringbone tile. I've actually installed herringbone tile with spacers in them, and it turned out terrible, horrible. I actually ripped the entire thing out because it bothered me so much that I could see the difference between all the spacings, if that tells you anything about how I tile things. And I will say the quality of the tile also matters too, because these tiles are actually, they're fairly cheap tiles, but they're not the cheapest. If you get the cheapest ones you can get, the mat on the back isn't really adhered to the tiles, so that's a problem. The tiles are like not evenly spaced on them to begin with, so don't go with like the super cheapest option. I know it's tempting, but it's really like frustrating in the long run when things are not spaced the way that they're supposed to be. So this is kind of like a middle of the row type of tile. That's what I would suggest. Not a super heavy tile. This is like really thin, light. I think this is actually, I want to say maybe it's glass tile. I don't know. I can't remember, but it's fairly light. And I know a lot of people, I always get, oh, it's going to add too much weight to it. It's too heavy. It's too heavy. Okay, well, I want you to go ahead and get you, I probably use 2 boxes of towel right here, and I want you to hold that in your hand. And I want you to tell me if that's any heavier than anything else that you're going to bring on your camper. Okay, and the answer is going to be easily no every single time. It's probably 40 pounds together, maybe 50 if you get like a higher quality tile. And honestly, in the retrospect of things, it's not going to make a huge difference if you add 50 pounds, because how your axles are rated. Now, I say that, okay, now if the manufacturer has done something crazy and like underrated your axles, well, maybe 50 pounds would be your breaking point, but that is like the 1%. Okay, back to the point. So I have started working on that curvature near the window. And this is me. I'm just breaking off the spare tiles right here because I don't need all of those for the part that goes above the countertop and between the window. And so I'm just cutting this straight right here. Then I'll go ahead and put that on. Again, same thing. Use the tape, blow it off, and then I can go put it on. Saves a whole lot of time. And I kind of skipped over this part about that curve, but I basically put a whole sheet of tile up on the corner right there, and I traced out where my marks for the curve were. And then I got the trim ring, and I put the trim ring on top of the tile that I just marked, and I marked out my 2 points for the top and the bottom of the curve that I had just made. And I'll show you this again in just a second once I smooth this out. I do use a little J roller right there to smooth out the tile and kind of adhere it on, just to give it a little more, I don't know, structure when you stick it down. So this is what I'm doing right there. I marked my 2 points where my corner is. I put it on the floor, got the trim ring. I put it on top of the tile and match up my 2 points. And then I just draw the curve with a pencil. And then I will take that outside and I will mark that out with tape. And so that way there's no guesswork in, oh, did I cut this corner in too deep? Did I not cut this tile enough? So anyway, it's just a good little check to have, and it just fits perfectly. All right, so once that section is laid in place, I am going to get the fan vent that goes above the stove, and I'm going to go ahead and put it up there and kind of test out where it goes and how far along that wall right there to the right that I need to put tile. So I need to know, I basically marked it so I know how far in toward that vent hole right there that I need to make the tile. Because obviously I don't want to just leave it like that because you can see behind it and that would just look bad. So I'm just putting different pieces of tile here. I have a lot of extra tile from like random cuts that I've done, so I'm going to use that to fill in this section right here instead of using a whole sheet. Again, just trying to use as most of the tile as possible and have the least waste as possible, because I don't like wasting things, because that just means that I'm wasting money. So that's my justification for that. And these spots right here, I'm just filling in with all of the little random tiles that I had. Same thing. not using the spacers. I'm just kind of winging it when it comes up here. Y'all can get on me for that if you want to, but I mean, once you see the end result, you're gonna be like, I literally cannot tell the difference. But like I said, it is a lot easier with these little hexagon tiles. It's a lot more difficult with the bigger tiles because there's just, I don't know. You would think there would be more grout surface area here so you'd be able to tell, but there's really not. So these ones that are closest to the window, I put them on and I made a little mark there, and then I just went and cut those with the tile saw. And same thing with this one. I actually did use a whole sheet for this one. So I'm lining it up. I already cut that, and I'm just gonna smooth this up and make sure that it is perfectly in alignment with the trim piece that I have to the left here and aligned with the other tile that's already there. And then we're getting to this last section that's up at the top. And then I'm putting a couple pieces up there, and I am going to leave that there's one little spot right up there. You probably, I don't even know if you can see that, but there's one tile that kind of like needed a little indent because the cabinet corner was there. So I took that and kind of just measured out, that's where I'm measuring it out right there, where that tile needs to go and how much of the tile needs to come out so it can fit. And now we're ready for grout. And another side note, if you see on the very top, top of the window, I didn't fill that in all the way, and that's because I'm going to have a window shade there, and so you're not going to see that anyway. So that's why I didn't finish tiling up there. Okay, a few things to note here for the grout. If you don't know how to grout, I suggest look up videos on how to grout because it's very simple. You just put the grout in, move it up, do work in small sections, and then wipe it off. But I do want to say this grout that I use is very messy. So you see I have a piece of OSB to catch all of the stuff that falls down. Would highly suggest using something that you don't mind throwing away afterward because once that grout dries, it will dry nasty and it will not come off. But as far as the grout goes, this is actually it's like a pre-mixed flex color grout. It is a flexible grout. I've had really good luck with this, especially with it, like not cracking, whatever. I used this years ago in campers and I have never gone back since. And if you're wondering about durability, my neighbor has a food truck and her husband installed this in their food truck, and it's been, let's say, 2 years now, almost 2 years, and it still looks brand new. So if that's any consolation to how this grout is and how the mat and the tile all work together to make it a wonderful thing, I hope that's encouraging to you. And then I'm going to put this window trim back on. Just putting the original screws back in that was there. And I don't want to over tighten this because I didn't do it outside of the trim. It's inside of the trim. So it's kind of sandwiched between the wall and everything else. And y'all know that I don't like to do that, but it just makes it look a lot better, especially with tile when you do that. And honestly, it's a pain in the butt to try to make it fit perfectly. So there's that too. Anyway, and then I'm going to put the vent fan back up, and I think that is it for the tile portion. I will see you guys back for day 21. Have a great night.